to me.
Hello everybody and welcome to New Church Online. Thank you for hanging out with us this morning or whenever you are tuning in. Next Sunday morning, excited to announce we will be in person outdoors in a parking lot at Poinsettia Pavilion. Make sure to check your newsletter for that, for all the pertinent information. It's going to be a ton of fun. I think it's going to do us a world of good to be together for those who are ready to do that. I was sharing last week and with one of our groups that sometimes when we're apart for too long, we forget. If you're away from someone for too long, you forget that you actually like them. You forget how much you enjoy their company. I have friends across the country that sometimes we don't talk a lot. We don't have the phone. We text every now and then. But when I am with them, like, oh, I love these guys. I love these people. Some of us have family like that. You're distant from them, but when you see them, like, oh, we have so much fun. I love being with these people, and I believe is the truth for our church. We miss each other. If you don't miss each other, you've just forgotten that you miss each other, because we love each other and we're excited to step into this next season of time with some more corporate worship gatherings. Coming up, what do we have? Election coming up. I thought this week, I was like, should I talk about the election to Amy? And she's like, yeah, you definitely should. Like, well, maybe I'll wear like a vote shirt or something. She's like, I would definitely talk about the election, but I would not wear a vote shirt. Too political. I'm like, too political? Like, voting is political. That's what we're voting on. Politics. She's like, yeah, but that sends a message if you wear a big vote on your shirt. I was like, well, okay, well, maybe I'll just wear like an American flag. She's like, nope, that is way worse. People will turn you right off. I'm like, okay, I'll wear something else. So I'm wearing a voting shirt underneath this shirt. Because sadly, she is right. We are conditioned to be triggered by certain messaging or imagery. I saw a guy in a big pickup truck the other day. He was ahead of me, and he is flying this big old American flag out the back. And I don't want to stereotype, but my guess is he wouldn't be voting for Biden, right? Because the American flag like that in a truck, again, a stereotype, seems to represent a certain type of person, right? If you see maybe some celebrities go out and do a go out and vote campaign, you're like, oh, there's the liberal agenda. There's Hollywood again. It's just voting. It's just the flag, and yet it's so much more. And if it rubs you the wrong way, the flag or encouragement to vote, if it rubs you the wrong way, a lot of times we're starting to reach for our sword. If we see that guy in his truck, like he's all American, like, oh, I'm reaching for my sword. If I feel like Hollywood or something like commercials kind of feels a little different than the way I think, like, I'm reaching for my sword. I just want to remind us, if you're a Jesus person, a follower, a Christian, even trying to begin this journey, which we're all really just trying, you should remember that we're that first. We are Jesus people first. We are people of His way first. That is our party, and that is eternal, and that is true reality. The debate the other night was more like reality TV. Is the election important? Sure, I think it is, right? It's important. It's our country, and we support our political systems, and we're just being good neighbors by voting. And it is important, but it's not that important. It's not that important. Well, what if so-and-so gets in? Well, then that's what happens. That's who gets in, and we keep following Jesus, and we keep loving people. And I'm deciding personally, and I hope you can get to this place, I'm deciding to not worry about it. I'm not worrying about it. I don't want to give up any more time or anxiety or personal resources to worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow, next month, next year. And so as you go about this month, and maybe the next 3 or 4 months, we'll see, and maybe you vote or you don't vote, like that's up to you. Do your thing, vote or don't vote. Just don't be a blank. Vote or don't vote, vote for whoever, just don't be a blank. You can fill in blank whatever's appropriate for you. I think we need to worry less about being right, because we're kind of caught up on that right now. Who's right? Who has the breaking news? Who's going to be able to say, I told you so? Worry less about being right and more about living righteously. Worry less about being right and more about living righteously. And that will do us a world of good as a church community. And that way we can shed a little light into a kind of a messy world right now. Acts 2. We're going to read it. We keep reading it. We'll read it again. It goes like this. All the believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship and the sharing in meals, including the Lord's Supper, and to prayer. A deep sense of awe came over all of them. The apostles performed many miraculous signs and wonders, and all the believers met together in one place and shared everything they had. They sold their property and possessions and shared the money with those in need. They worshiped together at the temple each day and met in homes for the Lord's Supper and shared meals with great joy and generosity, all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all people. And day by day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. So we've been looking at this. We continue to kind of muse on it and lean on it and meditate on it. And the context is this, if you've been with us, Jesus has died, he rises again, now he ascends to heaven, and the church as we know it is born at this time in Acts 2. And this is during a time when Rome is the global superpower, one such as the world has never seen. And these are the days of some real classy guys. Maybe you recognize some of these names from history like Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, Nero. But because it was so big and it was so dominant, by nature, you're going to have people of different backgrounds and beliefs in that empire. Because as they expanded, as the government expanded, as the military expanded, the people expanded. And so you have people who believe differently and different opinions and different ideologies. And sometimes those differences caused people to get murdered in their sleep. That was sort of the culture. That was what was happening in Rome. And Rome believed in peace through power. If we can just be strong enough and dominating enough and crushing enough, there will be peace. Peace through power, not peace through peace. And now the church came alive during this time. It was a time in Jerusalem. This is the Acts 2 story. During a period when the city was full of people on a religious pilgrimage. All the Jewish people came to Jerusalem as part of their annual pilgrimage. And the city is swollen with people. Thousands and thousands and thousands of new people in the city. Acts 2:5 says this. Now there were staying in Jerusalem God-fearing Jews from every nation under heaven. Which nations? Every nations. So all these different people are there in Jerusalem at this time. And Peter, during one of these moments, he's inspired by the Holy Spirit, and he gets up to preach. And the Holy Spirit's filling him. And here's what happens. This is Acts 2. We'll pick it up at 6. So Peter's preaching. And there's all these people around. It says, when they heard the loud noise, everyone came running. And they were bewildered to hear their own languages being spoken by the believers. They were completely amazed, verse 7. How can this be? They exclaimed. These people are all from Galilee. And yet when we hear them speaking in our own native languages, here we are, Parthians, Medes, Elamites, people from Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus, the province of Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, and the area of Libya known as Cyrene, visitors from Rome, both Jews, converts to Judaism, Cretans, and Arabs. And we all hear these people speaking in our own languages about the wonderful things God has done. And they stood there amazed and perplexed. What does this mean? So there's this movement in Peter to preach about the wonderful things God has done. And there are people from every nation gathered in this city, and they begin to hear these things in their own languages. Meaning they spoke different languages. So here in Acts 2, that we'll get to in this verse we keep reading, this is the group of people that becomes that late Acts 2 church. They're from very different types of places. And so they're very different types of people. Right? And that's the church that is being born. And it's not like today, right, where everyone believes the same thing. It's easy today. These people coming from different nations and languages, and they have cultural differences, ideological differences, religious differences, and yet they are forming the first church that is going to continue to change the world in the way that Jesus did. So how does that work? How do you get all these different people together from all these different places and beliefs and types? How does that work? Well, it works because of what Jesus said in Acts 1. And this is right before his ascension. And he's gathered his disciples again, and he's on his hill. And they're asking him, because they thought he was dead, and he came back like, oh, cool, oh my gosh, Jesus, this is verse 6 of Acts 1. Lord, has the time come for you to free Jerusalem and restore our kingdom? So this is the mission they've been bent on. We'll look at this in a little bit. They struggle with this. Has the time come? Are you going to overthrow Rome yet and restore Israel? Jesus is like, verse 7, he replied, the Father alone has the authority to set those dates and times, and they are not for you to know. He's like, I don't know. Ask your dad. That's not my business right now. But he does say, he's like, I don't know about that. But verse 8, but you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you. And you will be my witnesses, telling people about me everywhere, in Jerusalem, throughout Judea, in Samaria, and to the ends of the earth. And so when we read about Acts 2 happening and people sharing meals and sharing their stuff and worshiping and praying and living out this fellowship, this community that is so attractive that they have favor with all men, it works because of this power that has come upon them. When the Holy Spirit is working, Acts 2 is happening. When the Holy Spirit is active and alive, there is unity, and there is sharing tables, and there is miracles, and there is caring for orphans and widows. When the Holy Spirit is working, Acts 2 is happening. Even though all these people come from very different places, they are now listening and leaning into the same Spirit. I remember going to a friend's house as a kid, like maybe for the first time. For me, I think it was probably like 8 or 9, and you only really knew life at your house to a certain period. Like, this is life at my house. This must just be life. But sometimes that life was different at someone else's house. So your home life as a kid is different than someone else's home life as a kid. And my dad was fairly religious and very conservative when I was young. I don't remember having a TV. I don't think we had a TV because, of course, it was the devil. But if we did have a TV, we definitely weren't allowed to watch the Smurfs, right? The Smurfs were little blue black magic demons. So we didn't do that. But a friend's house was different. A friend's house might have not had those kind of rules and guidelines and thoughts about living. I remember going to dinner at one of my friend's house for the first time. And we go in and we hang out for a little bit outside, and we go in and we sit down. And not only did they have a TV, like right there in the living room, they had a TV, they have a TV, but they watched it during dinner. Anyone have those kind of friends? Maybe you were those kind of friends. But I'm like, I don't even think we had a TV in the house, and we definitely weren't allowed to watch one if we did. And we definitely weren't allowed to watch one while we were having dinner. And yet we sit down to dinner, like, they put the TV on. And I'm thinking, I am going to get in trouble for this. I am definitely getting... And we didn't hold hands at this dinner. We didn't pray. We watched TV. I'm also kind of thinking, this is kind of awesome. This is kind of awesome. And then the dad, he comes to the table from the kitchen. And he's like, hey, do you like steak? I'm like, I don't know. Is it good? He's like, it's the best. I'm like, oh, steak. So we're going to have steak and we're going to watch TV? And this is how you do it at your house? And after dinner, my friend said, you want to go to my room and play? Sure. We get there. He's like, hey, you want to watch something? Do I want to watch something? Wait, what? You have a TV in your room? And we can watch whatever we want? I'm like, I am definitely going to hell for this. Can we watch the Smurfs? Like that, it's just different, right? Remember that as a kid, it was different. We come from different places. We come from different stories. We come from different environments, relationships. We hold on to different ideals. Cultural ideals, childhood ideals, religious ideals. The problem is, church, when we begin to believe that Jesus holds all the same ideals that we do. When Jesus holds all the same ideals that you do, you're creating God in your own image. You're creating God in your own image. And the church can do that. Jesus, his teachings, his words, should continue to disrupt our thinking and our lives and our ideals as long as we walk with him. And none of us are going to arrive at perfection in this lifetime. So if you've gotten too comfortable, if Jesus aligns too much with the way you think, you might want to check in with him. You might want to check again. Luke 22 has this kind of cool story, kind of action story. Luke 22 is verse 47, we'll pick up. And this is Jesus' last night before his crucifixion. And he just had this great time with his disciples over dinner. And he's broke bread and they shared the cup. And then he's been praying by himself in this garden. He's praying out to God. He's connecting with his Father. And he comes back and he's sharing with the disciples. And he says this in 47, while he was still speaking, a crowd came up. So he's speaking to his guys. A crowd came up. And the man who was called Judas, one of the 12, was leading them. He approached Jesus to kiss him, but Jesus asked him, Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss? When Jesus' followers saw what was going to happen, they said, Lord, should we strike with our swords? So there's this little battalion of soldiers here to arrest Jesus. And Judas has tipped them off. He's sold Jesus out. And so his followers, Jesus is like, oh my gosh, they're here. Like, Lord, should we strike with our swords? And one of them struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. Should we strike? Meanwhile, there's one who's just got his sword out and he's swinging. He's cut off the ear of the servant of the high priest. Jesus answered, no more of this. And he touched the man's ear and healed him. And Jesus said to the chief priests, the officers of the temple guard, and to the elders who had come for him, am I leading a rebellion that you have come with swords and clubs? So the disciples are in a moment here with Jesus. That's a very intimate moment. They don't know what's going to happen at all, but they think Jesus is going to win. They think Jesus is going to win, whatever that means. They think Jesus is going to win. And when Jesus seems threatened in this moment, when there's guards and soldiers here to arrest him, Peter pulls out his sword to defend Jesus. We have to defend Jesus. And he doesn't even wait. When he asks, what should we do, Jesus? He's swinging. He just goes after it, cuts off an ear. Jesus is like, we learned this in one of the other gospels. They call out Peter. He says, Peter, put that down. Put that down. Put your sword down, Peter. What are you doing? What are you doing? And then Jesus picks up the ear and he heals the man. He heals the enemy. He heals what Peter had broken or destroyed. Because hurt people hurt people. Hurt people hurt people. And I think, well, why is Peter hurt? What does that have to do with Peter? Why would Peter be a hurt person who hurts people? Well, it's because Jesus getting arrested wasn't fitting into the picture of Jesus that Peter had created in his own mind. This Jesus getting arrested wasn't fitting what Peter had imagined. See, Peter's Jesus would fight, and Peter's Jesus would lead, and Peter's Jesus would conquer. And this Jesus appeared to be surrendering. And he's hurt because Jesus isn't supposed to lose. Oh no, but they're going to take him away. We're losing. Jesus isn't supposed to lose. My guy isn't supposed to lose. We're not supposed to lose. I am not supposed to lose. And the question is, like, lose what? What are you afraid of losing? Pride? Being right? Winning? He who wants to find his life must lose it. Jesus. He who wants to find his life must lose it. Maybe Peter needed to lose the old version of his life so that Jesus could give him a better one. And he had to let go of that picture. He had to let go of that picture of Jesus dominating and taking over and leading a physical empire. Jesus wasn't of that way. And when the church today, and we get caught up in these kind of riffs and we project Jesus as someone he's not, and we get too wrapped up in the fights of this world, and when the church starts fighting itself, because we do that, when the church starts fighting, it starts to look an awful lot like the culture we're trying to reach. All the polarization and the backbiting and the backstabbing. I would say in this time, like, let's be careful of this. Let's not let the division out there become a division in here, church. Let's not let the division out there become a division in here. We can think differently. We can believe differently. We can understand policy differently. We can approve of people differently. But that does not eclipse the fact that we are a holy family that God has brought together. Don't let the division out there become division in here. And don't let the chaos around us, you need to be careful about how much chaos you consume, because it is easy to get to on our phones and TVs. Don't let the chaos around us take away from the hope that is within you. Don't let the chaos around us take away from the hope that is within you. The world needs hope. We need hope right now, like more than anything. You have hope in you. Don't let that chaos out there drown out the hope that is in here. Hold on to that hope. Stand firm, stand fast. We are called to light up the path. We are called to light up the path of darkness. We are not called to light up people. We're not called to light up. We're called to light the path, not light people. Some of us are putting our torches in the wrong place. We're supposed to be lighting a path in darkness. You're like setting people on fire. We're called to light up the path, not light up people. Jesus has a deep love for humanity. I think you know that. I think you believe that. He has a deep love for humanity, the deepest love for humanity. Let's remember to try to have some of that love. So God, thank you for who you are, for your story, for your text, for your leading, for your guiding. I pray right now, Holy Spirit, come. Lord, we just breathe in. Holy Spirit, come. We breathe that in. We need the peace. We need your peace, God. We need your hope. Ignite that in us that we may light a path, Lord, of beauty and love and understanding and grace and truth, God. And let us stop tearing down one another. Thank you for who you are. All right, you guys, thanks for hanging out. Do not forget your kids. We will see you next Sunday online and in the parking lot. Have a good week. Peace.